Hello everyone and welcome to Scrap Mechanic. Now this is a game for the creative minded, to say the least. If you like building in Space Engineers and you like Wire Mod from Gary's Mod, then this is a game for you. Now, I want to quickly do a shout out to the developers of the game. One, for making the game, because I've had my eye on this game for quite a few months now, and I am so happy to see it come to Steam. And secondly, for allowing me earlier access to the game than what I would normally have had anyway had I purchased the game on launch. So I'm able to give you guys content a little bit earlier than the game will come out. So, let's jump in with the game here, but first things first, I want to show you guys the options menu, and then we can jump into a world that I've already created a few things in, but not so much. I maybe put in about 2 to 3 hours so far into the game, including streaming it as I did so just the other day. So, under the options menu here, you have all the controls, which are completely rebindable, so even having secondary keys if you so desire, such as inventory being bound to both I and B for backpack and inventory, which is kind of nice. I like having all my keys rebindable and having them being able to be bind twice. So, under audio, you have audio settings for everything. Now, I will point out a few complaints that I have about the game as we go, and one of them is that the music seems to just kind of stop after a while, which is kind of sad because I do like the music that the game happens to have. Under graphics, we have the game running on medium to low right now. It still looks good as it is, but my PC hasn't been performing as good as it should. I've had to reinstall Windows 3 times in the past 2 weeks, hence the lack of content on my channel. At least it kind of like slowed down. It wasn't a hiccup I was looking forward to encountering, but it seems to be mostly sorted now. Anyway, I will turn up the game settings as we go so you guys can see what it looks like on higher settings, but the game is a little taxing depending on what world you want to load into. Next you have the display, which the FOV is one thing that I will point out that may be vertical FOV and not horizontal FOV, because right now it's set to 70, which feels like my normal 90. If you guys know me, you guys know that I can't play on lower than 90 FOV, else I will start to feel sick. So, this here feels a little weird. I'm not too sure what it is, because it does seem very wide for just being 70. So, and the game does have borderless limited mode, so that is rather nice. Going out of there, we do have character options, which is simply just changing between a blonde-haired character and a character that I think is wearing a hat. I can't quite tell. But I normally just play as this guy anyway. So, what you want to do when starting the game is you want to go to create a new world. Now, right now this game only has creative mode, but they will be adding survival in the future. When you go to creative world, you have the option to change your world name and choose the type of terrain that you will encounter, be it normal terrain like you see in the background, or flat world, which is simply an empty flat world that you can build whatever you want in. This is great for those who either have PCs that aren't very strong and you just want to focus on the building, or for those who just want to focus on the building. But we're going to go terrain today so I can show you guys some of the nice environmental stuff. Now, you can tick private and set the password to whatever you want, and under settings here, this might remind you a little bit of Gary's mod, where you can limit how much of everything can be in the game. So for example, if I left the players set to 1, that should limit the game to hopefully only me. I don't know what would happen if I set it to 0, maybe it won't even let me into my own world. We'll try that for the sake of trying that. But this is good for if you have an open lobby. You can limit people to what they can spawn in total, which does help out in the performance regard quite nicely. Anyway, let's give this world a random name, and let's load into it, shall we? Okay, so welcome to the world of Scrap Mechanic. I'm going to ignore this, but you guys can feel free to pause the video and read this as you desire. So basically that is for just telling you to read the notebook, which is like this, which is quite informative to say the least. I very much do like it, as it does give you hints on everything and how to do everything in the game. But I'm going to quickly show you guys how to do stuff myself, because I kind of like how everything works, and I feel that me explaining it and showing it off as I go is kind of a nice thing. So first things first, I want to show you guys how the bearings work. Now the bearing is the most common mechanism type device you're going to be using in the game, or tool, or whatever you want to call it, and that's just down here on my toolbar. If I press I or B, you see our inventory. Now, in creative mode, you have access to all the blocks in the game, which are all the ones that you see on my screen here. Quite a few of them are cosmetic, which is kind of nice. It allows you to make some nice looking stuff, to say the least. And then up the top here are all your tools and all your mechanics. So you can make You can make vehicles, you can make houses, and yeah, just let your heart go wild. So there are a few different categories that I've put some of the items in. For example, you have your triggers here, which are used to activate devices based on their triggered status. So you have a switch here, for example, which, I mean, makes sense. It's a toggle, then that's a hold, and this is a sensor for when you're standing in front of it. Let me just quickly show you guys how some of this stuff works here. So first things first, we're going to build ourselves a little door, because that is the easiest way to demonstrate how the game works and how the game functions. So we're going to put down a block here. You can put down blocks wherever you want in the world, as long as it's connected to the ground. If you remove the connecting block, it just simply falls down, as you might expect. So the way building works is very simple. You can left click to place it down a block, right click to remove the block, and if you hold down left click, you will draw along the axis that that blue arrow icon that you see on the screen is facing. So if I want to build vertically, I just press Q and I can go into this vertical plane and this vertical plane and so on, so I can build like so. Very, very nice, very simple, and I do like the texture work in the game. It's something that I wanted to point out that I liked a lot about the game, and that is how the art style is. The only thing about the art style I don't like is the character models, but that's just me. Anyway, let's move on to making ourselves our door. So, we build this up here like so, and we remove a few blocks for our door because, well, we want our door to go in here, nice and snug. Now, the way you build a door is you put down the bearing first, like so, for example, and then you build onto the bearing itself. So we build up like this. Now, you might be a little worried thinking that I've just now connected the bearing to the rest of the structure. That's not true, because if I built onto the bearing itself, everything built onto the bearing stays only connected to the bearing itself and not the objects around it. This is really good because this allows for flush building, and this is one of my favorite aspects of the game. Now, to make a door, what you want to do is you want to go to your inventory and bring down two objects. You want the switch, because this will keep your door open, and you want a device called the controller. This allows you to control the rotation of bearings as you build. So, let's put the switch on the outside of our house here, because we want the door to open and close from the outside. And then we'll put the controller just hidden away on the inside of our house, just over here. Now, the way things work, the way things are connected, is via the connecting tool, like so. This will highlight all buttons, controllers, and bearings that you see, and all other objects that use power or need to be connected to other objects. So, what you want to do is you want to connect the switch to the controller, like so, very, very simply. Now, this means that whenever I press this now, it will activate the controller, and if I press it again, it will deactivate the controller. Now, let me just quickly connect the bearing here to the controller so we can show exactly what this does. So, when this is connected, you will see a numbered bearing with the rotation blue and rotation red. This is helpful for knowing which way you want something to open and close. So, for example, if I want the door to open outwards, I would open it up 90 degrees in the blue. So, let's do that right now. If I go over here, you can see where the bearing is situated right now, which is on 0 degrees, which makes sense. Now, for the first step, when the button is pressed, I want the door to open 90 degrees to the blue, like so. Now, you can have pretty complex steps as you desire, and the more bearings you have allow you to build onto some really nice looking things. So, with that being said, let us walk over to the button, and if we press the button like desired, let me just quickly remove something from my panel so I have an empty slot, because that looks a lot nicer. If I press the button now, you will see this will open up to 90 degrees, and it will stay there like so. If I press the button again, it will reverse the steps, and it will go back on itself like so, allowing for a very, very flush build. Now, this works not only on objects like houses, but also on vehicles as well, allowing you to build very, very nice, flush looking vehicles. So, let us move on to a vehicle, shall we? Because I think this roughly demonstrates how a lot of the building will go. Actually, let me show you guys the sensors first, so you guys get a feel for that as well. Let's remove that, and we'll add a button, and we'll remove this, and we'll add a sensor. Just because I want to show you guys some of the other things that the game can do. So, now that we have I should probably put the button down, shouldn't I? There we go, the button is now down, and now we can just connect it, and this will work exactly how you think. Now that it's connected, I can just activate it like so, and as you can see, as long as I'm holding down the button, the door will activate, or the steps will activate. If I release, the steps will go back on themselves, as you would probably have expected. Now, if we remove this, we can put down a sensor, like so. Maybe not the best orientation, but you can see when it activates when I stand in front of it like so. This is good for traps or I don't know, anything you really desire that needs a sensor. So, there we go. That is how that works, and this is a very, very simple build. So let's move on to making a vehicle next. I'll show you guys all the process behind this, just so you guys get a feel for the game as well, and in the building aspect of maybe not something exactly complicated, because I'm not to that point in the game just yet of building anything too overly complicated. So what we want to do is we want to get ourselves a block of wood, because I like building things out of wood. It's a lot lighter weight than, say, steel or tile, I should say metal, which tends to weigh a lot more. So let us go and let's put down a wooden base first before we can put down our seat on top of it. Now our seat is just over here, and we can rotate it around to the right way, the right axis, and like so, you can see it is sitting nice and flat. Now, for a vehicle, you don't necessarily need suspension, but for the sake of it, I will give this vehicle suspension. Now the main components that go into a vehicle, other than suspension, is a motor, a suspension, and wheels. I mean, I guess you don't really need wheels, but it helps to have them to make your travel a little nicer, so we will add wheels to this build as well. Remove the sensor, remove that, keep the bearing because obviously we'll need this, don't need the seat anymore, we need the motor, and we need ourselves some off-road suspension and a wheel. This should be all you really need for your build. You can add more complex stuff to it as you go. Actually, we'll put a button down there just in case we need it, and the controller. Now, as you noticed when I first started building a vehicle, I built it on what was a lift. Now, this lift or elevator is great for building vehicles as it keeps it detached from the world. Not only does it do that, it allows you to build underneath something by using your arrow keys to raise and lower your build as you build it. Now, my one complaint about this in the game is the lack of pistons. As I pointed out before, we have bearings to make things work, and a lot of your building will be using bearings. However, there is a lack of pistons in here, which I thought would be a nice thing to add, especially for some more complicated building. But I believe that will be coming in the near future as well, as I can't really see them missing out on pistons at all. So, let us resume building our vehicle. So we'll build the back up here, just a little bit so we can stick ourselves our motor on, which I surprisingly didn't keep us a motor. I thought I did, but maybe I removed it. So let's remove this here, and we'll give ourselves a motor real quick. We'll give ourselves a gas engine, because that's what we really need. Put that down like so. Looking quite nice already. Now, what we want to do is we want to build up slightly, and then allow us to have the suspension going down. We kind of want the suspension to start up a little bit, but not so far. So we're going to come out here like so, go up a little bit, and like so. Now, obviously, you're going to want the vehicle to be steerable. Thank you, house, for beeping at me. So we want to put out a little block like this. Very, 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 very simple. And what we want to do now is we want to put our bearing underneath here so that when we steer, this will activate this bearing. And I'll get to a lot of the wiring in a second because this is important to how a vehicle functions. Now, we don't want all the wheels steerable, we just want the front ones because that makes sense to have only the front wheels on a vehicle steerable. Unless you're into that type of stuff, but I'm not really. So we build onto that, and if you hear that sound, that does mean that you've successfully built onto the bearing, just to keep that in mind. Now, we're not going to put any bearings here, so we're just going to kind of even that out with some blocks ourselves. Next we want is the suspension, like so. And this will act as, well, I guess how you would expect suspension to work. Smoothing out the ride, making things a little easier on yourself. Next you want to put down a few blocks. Now, one other complaint I have is the inability to build tool on top of tool. This happens quite a lot, but especially when you have bearings and suspension, for example. You'd think that maybe you'd want to stick a suspension on a bearing, but you can't quite do that. So you have to have a block in between, hence why we had those blocks up there. Would be nice to avoid that, but I'm not going to complain. Let's stick these over here so we can stick our wheels on, and we'll be good to go. The wheels do need them, else they won't necessarily function. So, we'll connect them like so, and our vehicle is almost good to begin. So now we want to connect everything. So, using the connect tool, you want to assign the wheels to the motor. Now, the motor lights up orange, meaning power, or I guess acceleration. So we want to connect these like so, to reinforce the fact that we are giving the wheels power from the motor. Now, if we look at their rotation, we have to make sure that they're facing the right way, which in this case would be forwards, unless we just want to turn on the spot, but I don't think we really want to do that today. So there we go, all the wheels are now facing forward, which is good. Now we want to connect the motor to the steering wheel, or to the cockpit here, which allows us to control its acceleration rates via S and W. Next we want to control is the steering. So we'll put this over to here and this over to here. This will allow us again to control the steering via the green line. So green line means control, orange line means power. And I think that's all we really need to set up here. So I want to make sure this is facing the right way. Now I still haven't quite figured out which way we need this to be, but I'm just going to assume clockwise from the top-down perspective. And this would be our very first vehicle. Nothing too fancy, but it does the job, hopefully. Now, we want to remove the lift like so by right-clicking, and there we go. Next thing you want to do is you want to set up your motor so that it has the maximum limit set. So we'll set it to 2, because this seems to be a good place to do a lot of your driving. And we get into the seat like so. We use A and D to rotate the front bearings, as you can see, and W to go forward, S to go backwards. And there we have our very first working vehicle in Scrap Mechanic. Very, very simple, but we can go exploring for a bit. But first things first, I kind of want a little bit of protection. Whilst there isn't any enemies in the game, I think protection is something that should be well sought after. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a few bearings to the side of my vehicle here, and this will allow me to build a few protective panels, I guess you will say. So, we'll build a few blocks like so. Looks a little flush, looks nice and tidy. So, we'll build this out to here as well, and this will just give us the extra protection that we might need. We're going to put ourselves a controller just up in here, if we can get it to fit like so, or we just stick it like here is perfectly fine as well. Now I'm going to stick the button kind of near our door, because this would make sense to have it here, and then we will connect all of these together. So connect the switch to the controller like we explained before, and then connect the controller to the bearings like so. Now these will be numbered 1 to 2. Now when we press our button, we want this to open up a little bit into the blue and that into the red. So let's do that now. Now you can have bearings on the same step if you so desire. So number 1 will be going into the blue, like so. But we kind of want it to go a little bit above 90 degrees. We'll go up to we'll go to 150. And we'll do this one to 150 as well. That way, we can press the button and we'll open up the door, like so. There we go. Nice and secure. Let's get inside our vehicle now and let's get out of here. There we go. Very nice. Now what you can do, and I didn't realize this initially, but if I get on my vehicle right now, you can actually assign switches to your driver's seat, much like you would do in Space Engineers. So if I connect this to my seat like so, this will label this switch number 1. So when I'm sitting inside the seat, like so, you can see the button is down the bottom of my screen, or sorry, the switch is down the bottom. So if I press 1, that will activate the switch from inside the seat. Very, very handy. So there we go. Let's go out on our little adventure in our, what looks kind of maybe like a bathtub, and see if we can find anything interesting as we drive around. Now, again, I do very much like how the terrain looks in the game. It's very pretty, to say the least. The art style is something that I can't quite explain what it is, but I do very much enjoy it for its visual appearance. Now, I did see a mountain before, much like this one here, and I kind of want to go up it. So let's see if this thing can maybe get up a mountain, because I think that would be kind of fun. Don't know where to go to get up there, but we can maybe find a way. And then that should end today's video. So let me know what you guys think of Scrap Mechanic in the comments down below. Obviously there's a lot more advanced stuff you can build in the game, but I wanted to show you guys the basics and give you guys a feel for how a lot of the mechanics actually work. Maybe in the next video we'll check out a few thrusters and so on, so we can see how those work. I do very much enjoy the game, and I will again say thank you to the developers for giving me earlier accents than what I would have normally had, so I very much appreciate that, and the consideration that went into it. So, I think we are almost near the top here. No, we've run into a dead end. But that won't stop us at all, will it? Let's go up here. Maybe we can even add a few boosters to see if we can make it, but I think this vehicle should be fine to make it up the hill by itself. We do have 4-wheel-drive suspension after all, so maybe we can make it. Or maybe we can't. No, we can't make it. Oh, that didn't sound very good. It sounded like a tire popped. I do like the squeaky sound. That is kind of adorable. But there we go, we have now flipped a vehicle. Now what you want to do to unflip a vehicle is use your lift tool. Just clicking it once and clicking it again will allow you to stand your vehicle upright. So, I guess that'll do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and I'll leave this here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay awesome everyone.